you'll start to notice as you wake up that your external reality will begin to change to reflect your internal state. It's important to come back down to earth after a spiritual awakening. And that involves staying grounded, physically and energetically connected to Mother Earth and all of her beings. And of course, that also includes decolonization. Because if we're going to say we're actually really all one, we need to acknowledge that we are all family. We're all interconnected. And there really is no true separation. And that involves addressing the karma in our lineage and also the injustices that have been enacted on marginalized communities and the harm that colonization has caused to all of us. I've been listening to Radical Dharma by Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, and just appreciating the bigger perspective on Buddhism in the West, and also I really loved the commitment to not just internal like an internal spiritual awakening, but also an external awakening and commitment to transforming the injustices of the physical, three-dimensional world that we all live in. I have also been reading Gopi Krishna's Kundalini, the evolutionary energy in man. And I really loved his portrayal of the Kundalini awakening process as something that is actually biological in nature, and his commitment to staying grounded in this reality, in this three-dimensional reality, because he kind of had a non-traditional awakening in that he wasn't necessarily seeking that, at least consciously. He was just a lay person in India. There's so much spiritual garbage. There's so much, spiritual bypassing, materialism, and it's just like more ego inflation. It's more, new age kind of cult spirituality, which not only appropriates different traditions and is misguided, but also it's highly destructive, because it's also, further inculcating people into kind of this false light or false awakening, and also further entrenches us in individualism and not seeking the truth, but rather just only our own comfort. So a big part of my coming back down to earth process of my awakening has been just reconnecting with people in a more conscious state, but also staying humble to what lessons I can learn from people that have not, quote unquote, gone through a spiritual awakening, people that have different life paths than me, and just not engaging in the ego wars anymore, but just like kind of almost going back in time and learning the lessons maybe I didn't learn before my awakening, because that's how time lines and time kind of works, is that we can actually go back in time within our own internal soma, our internal system. I think it's also important for us to release our baggage of our trauma narrative. It's something that I was very attached to for a long time, just to, really make sure I got all the healing that I needed. But at a certain point, I realized that it was just weighing me down, making me feel like I had to keep changing myself or healing myself, and there's this lightness that ensues after you kind of let go of that narrative. So it's actually really critical that you protect and nurture your senses, especially if you live in an urban environment. We live in an extremely toxic and overstimulating culture, at least here in the West. And I've noticed, as I've kind of unmasked my neurodivergence as well, that my senses are in need of more calm and more nurturing. And that doesn't mean just shutting everything out. It means actually keenly tuning into what nourishes you, softer music or softer people, softer environments. So some thunder going on today. You'll start to notice as you wake up that your external reality will begin to change to reflect your internal state. And that was a very strange phenomenon for me at first, until I understood the non-duality of inner and outer worlds, and that we're kind of like just projecting our internal state into the external world, and we're just a vessel or a channel for collective energy. And so that's why it's really important to stay grounded, be in nature while you're going through these changes, so that what you're channeling is actually coming from a pretty healed, pretty, conscious state that's not infiltrated by a lot of the energies that are in the sort of the ego, the collective ego consciousness that's out there. Not that there's a judgment on that, it's just that it's maybe not as healed and not as clear of a message that you're receiving. So I wanted to share some of my favorite grounding activities. Obviously being out in nature like I am now, doing walking meditations. This means actually feeling the ground connect with your feet, and even wearing, there's copper soled shoes that you can buy for pretty affordable rates for that, and also just wearing sandals with like cork on the bottom, things like that. And water is really grounding for me, so being in bodies of water, whether that's like a swimming pool, a bath, ideally a lake, where there's clean water. Grounding music, so anything that kind of has a grounding vibration, like low frequencies, drumming, chanting, that kind of thing can be grounding. Because I think meditation is definitely an avenue to higher states of consciousness, which can lead us to become ungrounded if we're not careful with how much we're in those states all the time. And we're having a spiritual awakening on the earth plane, and so we need to remain grounded to Mother Earth. This is an especially relevant topic for sensitive people who typically are the ones to go through a spiritual awakening. Because it's so easy for us to kind of access those spiritual realms, and so it's even more important that we stay grounded. And another way that I think is really important is through the nourishment that we give our bodies. So, I think there's a lot of food in, quote unquote, food in our culture that is just garbage, a lot of processed foods, a lot of fast food, that kind of thing. It can be very addicting, and we have to be really careful to nourish ourselves with foods that are healthy, but also like energetically healthy, like they're sourced from ethical, by ethical means, and also are organic, and they're free from pesticides and contamination and microplastics. And those things can be really expensive. And so learning how to grow your own food, networking with community gardens and spaces like that can be a way to access more nutritious food. But as far as food, what I've learned that is grounding is a lot of the things that grow in the ground. So like roots, root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, radishes, that kind of thing. And also a lot of nuts and seeds and that kind of thing as well. And getting in touch with traditional medicine systems, that are maybe ancestrally relevant. So for me, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, learning the meridian system, learning Tai Chi and Qigong, that is also grounding. And I think that can be beneficial for so many people. And so finding a way to, connect to your ancestors in order to connect to the earth as well. And I think it's really important to engage in these practices ethically without harming other beings or cultures in the process through appropriation or kind of speaking on behalf of cultures that are not yours, because then that can incur like a karmic debt as well. So I think a big risk that is not discussed enough in the spiritual awakening community is the potential for increased nervous system dysregulation because of the recalibration of the body, mind, spirit during this process. And Gopi Krishna talks about this in his book on Kundalini. And, several times he's experienced this like nervous system overwhelm because of these intense energy upgrades that were happening in his body. So I think it's not to be underestimated, sort of the force of Kundalini and the force of awakening. And so I think it's important to take things easy and take things slow, and not try to rush an awakening process. That being said, I've had a few moments of pretty sudden awakenings. I wouldn't say it's like one individual awakening. I've just had several powerful awakening experiences throughout my life. And these are interactive alchemical processes, I guess you could call them, that are happening within the interconnected matrix that we live in. And so it's not fully in our control, right, when we have an awakening and how we have an awakening. So that's why it's actually after having an awakening, it's really important to stay grounded and to, once you gain more conscious awareness of your life and your state of being, to actually kind of use that to your advantage, I guess you could say, or to recalibrate yourself to a more grounded place, so that you can still, stay here in this three-dimensional reality to help support other people, other beings in their awakening process as well.